I don't know who I'm going to piss off more with this information. I doubt, even though I work for Honda, I think I'm too small for them to even care, but what's going on, guys? Cody from Motorcycle MD, and in this video, I'm not showing you how to fix anything. I'm not showing you how to replace anything, how to adjust, how to tune, nothing. Instead, I would like to simply just talk to you guys about a specific topic when it comes to the maintenance schedules for your bike, what Honda says, what reality looks like, and hopefully with just a few minutes I can give you guys just some legitimate background information on what I would suggest for you to do and talk with you guys. I know I do it a lot and I'm very long-winded and blah blah blah. If you don't like that, then peace. But mainly what I want to specifically hone in on is the maintenance schedules that Honda has for your motorcycles. I'm going to speak specifically about Honda only. I don't care about any other brand. The reason for that is because I am a Honda factory technician. I am in a bubble most of the time when it comes to what a manufacturer brand says about their product. And because I get a lot of questions from people when it comes to, hey, I own this bike, I own this model this year, whatever. The manual says that I need to do this to my bike every certain miles or hours or time. But when it comes to the reality of what the manual says maintenance schedule wise, and you should be able to trust your brand, obviously, and what they say and never defer, right? Well, I would disagree. Simply because I am the technician who people bring their bikes to. I am in the business of keeping your motorcycle alive. Whether you hate dealerships or not, whether you'll never go to one, I do not care. But my business, my passion, my choice of career is designed around keeping motorcycles alive and on the street for as long as they possibly can. So whether you hate dealerships or not, we can both agree on the fact that keeping your motorcycle healthy and alive is top of the list. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, when you buy a motorcycle, whether it's used or whatever, that bike came with some type of operator's manual. Usually they would have a booklet or something that comes with the bike for information for you. How to maintain the bike, proper tire pressure, blah, 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 blah. And they would come in the back, and they still do, with a maintenance schedule of what you should follow when it comes to the scheduled maintenance for your bike. Whether you believe in that or not, I don't know. Honda, in most cases, maybe a few bikes are different from the others. They usually have a periodic maintenance that is done at 600 miles, 4,000, and every 4,000 after that. 4, 8, 16, so on and so forth. The further you get into the miles, the more complicated or more involved that service becomes. Some bikes are not seen for 8,000 miles or whatever the case may be. Like some Gold Wings, there may not be a 600-mile service, but there likely is. Usually it's just a periodic, let's kick the tires, make sure that nothing has fallen out of the motor, and typically comes with an oil change right off the bat. However, the thing that I will disagree with first off is the periodic maintenance for the oil changes that Honda suggests to you. Almost all bikes, probably except scooters or maybe even dirt bikes, if there even is a maintenance schedule for those, say that after the 600-mile service, you should be doing an oil change about every 8,000 miles, as well as a filter change. Some even just do the oil change and they push the filter change even as far as 16,000 miles, which is wild. Why is that wild? Great question. Now, I'm not going to talk to you at all about what oil you should use. Let's leave that where it is. Use whatever oil you want. I do not care. That is your bike. You can test the limits of whatever you want to do. But when it comes to the frequency of the oil change, what I have seen from experience, I've been in the dealership, I do the maintenance schedules on bikes. I do them as a daily job. 8,000, 16s, 24s, 36s, 32s, whatever it is, I've done it on many, many bikes. And what I will tell you is that every 4,000 miles, I change the oil on the bike. That is an automatic thing that I do. I don't suggest anything otherwise. Unless, of course, it is a smaller CC bike. Regardless, you should look at your maintenance schedule. You should Google your owner's manual and find the maintenance section for your bike and see what they do say. For the smaller stuff, Grom, Navi, smaller dirt bike stuff, scooters, whatever, if they are saying 4,000 mile oil changes, then again, I would half that. Reason being, every motorcycle, whether you like to believe it or not, burns oil. The amount at what rate is variable. Okay, there are regulations as what is seen as efficient and what isn't. That is far above my pay grade, nor do I care about what bike burns more than others. I think it's just very finite in some cases. It is an inefficient system. The motor is an inefficient system that works very, very well. But there are always losses, heat losses, friction losses, and it burns oil. I mean, that's just facts. And when it comes to even smaller CC bikes like the 300s, the scooters, 50cc, 125s, 250, 300s, whatever they all are, what I can tell you is that how do I put this? The customers who are owning these bikes, whether it's passed down through multiple different owners or whatever, someone is likely pushing that bike kind of hard, we'll say. Even if you're cruising on the interstate at 80 miles per hour on your Honda Rebel 300, you're pushing that bike quite a bit. I'm not saying that it can't handle it, but I'm saying that you're pushing it. Typically when scooters are being ran, especially smaller CC stuff, they are wide open and that's where they're held, right? To get around town. That's what they're for. These bikes don't have that much oil in them. I mean, if you compare it to a DCT model Goldwing that's pushing almost over 5 quarts of oil, your scooter's got less than a quart. You know, if your Honda Rebel 300 may have half that or less. And at 8,000 miles, people, the oil is low. And that would vary from bike to bike, from model to model, to how it's ridden to how it's not ridden. It all kind of varies. But to encompass the overall variety of how these bikes are treated and how they're used and how they're maintained and not maintained, I'm going to suggest to everybody that you should change your oil and filter at 4,000 miles. I know this seems very, very basic, very simple, but you would be surprised at the amount of people who do ask and who you may not know, and you're following the guidelines and maybe everything is going fine. That's great. But at 8,000 miles, the oil is not only lower than what it should be, but I would consider it spent. You know, and there's a whole thing, you know, black oil means it's bad. That's not true. You know, there are detergents in the oil that break down, change color, and that's what you get. You can put 300 miles on some fresh oil and it's going to be darker than what it was when it was put in. But at 8,000 miles, people, that stuff is used up, man. And I would rather people not do that. Treat it like you would your vehicle. In fact, when it comes to motorcycles in general, especially wet clutch systems, car oil and motorcycle oil are different in ways. You know, you have an engine that is operating with a clutch and a transmission. They're all using the same thing. It's being burned up. You know, it's being used. It's being pushed to the limit. When it comes to cars, it's a little bit different. You have an engine separated from the transmission in the fundamental scheme of automobiles and motorcycles. But even then, when it comes to automobiles, embedded in my brain is 3,500 to 5,000 miles on your oil changes for your car. I've lived by that and it's done great things for me. I'll use my wife's Honda Element, for example. 346,000 miles on that thing and it's burning oil. I gotta add a half a quart of oil to it every 2 weeks, but it's working, it works, you know? And it's gotten 3,500 to 4, maybe if you pushed it, 5,000 mile oil changes ever since she's owned it. Now, why would Honda tell you to do 8,000 mile oil changes? I don't know. I don't know if it's an EPA thing. I don't know if it's a way for the customer to feel like their bike is easy to maintain because it has such longevity between maintenance intervals. I don't know. That's beyond me. But what I can tell you, and I think we all can agree, that good, clean oil is never a bad thing for an engine. It's never a bad thing. No one wants to bathe in dirty bath water. Engines don't want old, burnt up oil being run in them. That's how you get sludge deposits. That's how you get discoloration of the parts inside. That, like, all these things that are naturally occurring, we can manipulate slightly, and I want you to manipulate them slightly because of what I've seen. Now, the thing is, we can't say, oh, well, Honda, this is false information and you've done things wrong and you should not tell people this. The thing is, the fine print is that it is your job 100% to maintain and look after your motorcycle. That means that after you've ridden it for 4,000, 6,000 miles, it's probably a good idea just to see where something is at, see where the oil level is at. That's your job. That is not Honda's job. Okay, that's the fine print. The life of these fluids that your bike is using is in your hands, even when you take them to the dealership. You know, it's when you take them I think matters more, but it's your job. When it comes to the other fluids, brake fluid, coolant, I think they're pretty accurate with what Honda says. I think it's usually 1 year or 2 years. It's a good idea to start saving some money up or getting the tools you need to get that kind of stuff done. Change the brake, flushing the brake fluid out. Brake fluid is susceptible to moisture and it goes bad, man. It does not last forever. Coolant does not last forever. That stuff goes bad. There's ways to test the integrity of those fluids with certain tools. You know, they go bad. Once a year stuff is fine. Coolant, you could push that 2 years, 3 years, and all depends on your riding style, you know, how hot you're getting that bike all the time, and how many miles you're kind of putting on it as well matters. That's why Honda usually does a time or a mileage. So it's either 8,000 or 4,000 or 16,000 miles or every 2 years, you know. I can agree with that. I've even seen videos of people talking about air filters on certain bikes that Honda says to do them at 16,000 miles or 12,000 miles. But I pushed mine to 70,000 miles and this is what mine looks like. Awesome, that's great. But for the overall encompassing people who may never ride their bike unless it's 78 degrees and it's for 5 minutes to the coffee shop and puts their bike back, or the guy who likes to take the long way home around the mountain and there's dust and debris every time he gets behind a car on his way home, those things alter and change how an air filter breathes. Obviously, they are being affected. Even in the manuals, they say, depending on the conditions the bikes are riding in, this is what we suggest, you know. But an overall encompassing thing, air filter changes are good. But when it comes to even things like valve adjustments, now here's a different story. Bikes are different, okay? Right off the bat, I'll tell you that this bike model will be different from this bike model. It all depends on the valve train. It depends on even I would say the ease of getting to it and how big of a job that might be. But really, I think it matters more about just the design of the valve train. Bikes that have a tap-it style system, it's a very adjustable, very easy, typically to access style system. They want that to be checked periodically, even as soon as 4,000, 8,000, 16s. I'm not saying for each 4,000 mile interval, but they can come as soon as. Some bikes with a more expensive, a more efficiently engineered valve train may push them further to 16, 32, sometimes 48. It kind of all depends. You need to look at yours to, you know exactly what I'm talking about. From experience, from what I've seen when it comes to Gold Wings, Africa Twins, CBR stuff, like, you know, high-end 600cc, 1000cc big liter bikes, the valve train system, I would say that 70% of the time, they don't need it at the first interval. Now, although that information may not be really helpful, because I still think that it's a good thing to check on these things when the book says to, right? Because it could be out. But most of the time, I would say that it's not. Most of the time. There have been times, however, where it was important. Maybe not, you know, drastically, but there was slight differences in what the spec of a clearance should be versus what is actually apparent. So that's an easy argument to say that regardless, it should still be checked, but this is just information from experience that I'm sharing that may be helpful to somebody. But that being said, that's all the information that I want to share with you guys in this video. Sorry this wasn't, you know, walk you through mechanical, let's tear this apart type thing, but it's information and it's stuff that I get, viewer questions that I see all the time that I think is worth a video and is worth YouTube or the internet having this type of information from someone that I hope you can trust. You know, I've been doing this for a while, and I don't want to lead anybody the wrong direction. So I don't think that there can be an argument stated that says that old burnt oil or a less amount of oil is a healthy thing to do for your motorcycle. Whether or not the oil is considered bad at 8,000 miles or not, from experience, it's either low and it looks pretty terrible. I wouldn't want that in my bike, and I wouldn't want that in your bike. So that being said, I don't know if this was helpful. If you did like this type of content, feel free to comment below. Let me know what other questions you may have that you would like to know about, maybe a little more clarity about. I'm not saying this is gonna be a common thing, but here it is. Cody from Motorcycle MD, bringing you guys some quality tips and tricks for your next build or your daily rider. I'll see you guys around. Change that oil. Later.